Hi, I'm Michael from the Senate Public Information Office. Welcome to Senate Discovery. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to advise viewers this episode of Senate Discovery contains content related to sexual assault that some viewers may find confronting. We have included links below this video to helpful services for anyone needing assistance. Recently, allegations of sexual assault in a minister's office were made public and created news headlines around the country. On the 18th of February, the minister made a statement to the Senate about these allegations, and the following week the Senate spent time addressing them and questioning ministers.
Mr President, I refer to the serious matters relating to my former staff member, Ms Brittany Higgins, who was employed in my ministerial office when I was the Minister for Defence Industry. And I take this opportunity to provide the Senate with a further statement. On Monday evening, we heard in Brittany's own words the harrowing account of her alleged sexual assault in my ministerial office in 2019. In terms of the actions taken by my then Chief of Staff and by me in the days and weeks that followed Brittany's alleged assault, we at all times followed the advice of the Ministerial and Parliamentary Services and the Department of Finance, as was appropriate. I have full confidence that my then Chief of Staff and I, at all times, acted in what we believed were in the best interests of Brittany.
Mr President, what this does come down to is who knew and whether they handled that appropriately, whether they handled what they knew about the alleged assault appropriately. But of course, there are human consequences to all of this. For Ms Higgins, 2 years of compounded trauma and denied justice. For all women in this building and beyond, 2 more years of ignoring concerns about culture.
It's taken very brave women, so wronged by the system, to speak out. Over the weekend, 2 more women came forward alleging that they've been raped by the same perpetrator. This should weigh heavily on those who failed to act decisively in response to Brittany Higgins' allegations. And that's why the particular details of how this place, this government, failed Brittany Higgins is important.
In relation to the systemic issues in place, my office, consistent with what the Prime Minister has announced, has now reached out across all party lines, groupings and independents to arrange for discussions that I will undertake over coming days to enable us to pursue a true, multi-party, independent approach to ensure that across this building, regardless of the political party that an individual may work for, they can have confidence in the systems and processes that are in place to support them.
The Senate considered several bills this fortnight, including a bill seeking to regulate the bargaining framework between Australian news providers and digital platforms like Google and Facebook. The Treasury Laws Amendment News Media and Digital Platforms Mandatory Bargaining Code Bill was introduced in the Senate on the 22nd of February and would make it mandatory for certain digital platforms to provide payment to news providers for access to their content.
And the petulant behaviour of Facebook and what they did last week reinforces for me why this legislation is not only necessary, but that the tough stance that the government has taken in this issue, on this issue is justified. It will establish a world-first mandatory code to address the bargaining power imbalances between digital platforms and Australian news businesses.
I think it's really important to say at the outset that this bill is designed to deal with one particular part of the issues facing public interest journalism in this country, news media, and of course the long-awaited regulation of the big tech giants. It doesn't solve everything, and it certainly cannot stand alone as the only action needing to be taken to ensure that A, we deal with the monopoly that exists online, the digital tech giants, but also the monopoly that exists within Australia's media landscape.
From the outset, Labor's indicated in principle support for a workable code to address the bargaining imbalance between dominant digital platforms and Australia's news media. So, on that note, Labor supports the bill to establish this mandatory code of conduct to address this imbalance. However, we note that the code of conduct does not preclude parties from their own commercial negotiations or reaching deals outside the code.
My view is that this bill should more rightly be called the Getting the News Media on Side Before the Next Election bill. The government has no place getting involved in a fight between the billionaires in legacy media and the billionaires in new media. Yet it looks like that is exactly what our parliament is doing.
The bill was passed on the 24th of February and will now be sent to the Governor-General for royal assent. Among the bills passed by the Senate this sitting period were two private senators' bills, one relating to small business franchising disputes and the other relating to information given to the Royal Commission into Violence, Abuse, Neglect and Exploitation of People with Disability. A private senator's bill is a bill introduced by a senator who isn't acting on behalf of the government. It's rare for a private senator's bill to get passed into law. In fact, fewer than 20 private senators' bills have become law since Federation in 1901. The two bills passed last week have been sent to the House of Representatives for consideration. On the 15th of February, a ministerial statement was made in the Senate reflecting on the anniversary of the national apology to the stolen generations. Senators took time to speak to the statement.
This past weekend marked 13 years since then Prime Minister Rudd gave an apology on behalf of the nation to Australia's Indigenous people, particularly to the stolen generations. The apology was a moment for our country to take steps towards healing. It was a significant step in and of itself. I reiterate those words today. I am sorry for the injustices of the past. We are sorry as a parliament.
What will it take for this country to confront the awful realities of its history and fix these continuing fundamental wrongs? Well, let me tell you what a good start might be, apart from setting some new targets. To the other side I say, open your hearts and embrace in full the plea of the Uluru Statement of the Heart for voice, treaty and for truth. We can only be enriched and not diminished if we do.
This system is still discriminatory. It is a racist system, and we need to call it for what it is: discriminatory and racist. Our systems are still, our services are still discriminatory. They do not meet the needs of Aboriginal people.
The national apology was important for healing. But the horrible legacy of those callous policies continues to this day. The harm of being ripped away from family, land and culture passes through generations. An apology was important, but it was only a beginning and not an end.
A number of committee reports were tabled during the sitting period, including the Legal and Constitutional Affairs References Committee report on nationhood, national identity and democracy. Links to all the reports and associated debates can be found via the Senate Daily Summary, linked below this video. That concludes Senate Discovery for February. The Senate sits again on the 15th of March, with additional estimates taking place from the 22nd to the 25th. And of course, we'll be back the following week with another wrap-up of the Senate's work. In the meantime, you can follow the Senate's official Twitter and YouTube account to keep up to date with the latest. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you soon.